The Outlanders Journey. Tier 1, Level 3. Chapter 4. Arc. You are an alien in your own woodlands. You are, to yourself and to all the Aarakocra who see you, a shell of who you once were. Little droplets of rain splash onto your head, and you gaze up to find Reka soaring thoughtlessly, intuitively. Such skills never needed to be taught to you. There is a kind of power that comes with elevation. When you were a child, you enjoyed shaking tree branches after a heavy thunderstorm and sending a torrent of showers onto the ground. You loved the sound of the deluge, and you felt almost like a god of the weather, omnipotent and immortal. Only now do you wonder if a traveler or wild animal might have been a victim of your little game of tyrant. You never had to think about land-bound creatures before. Reka's green cloak proudly displays the bow and arrow sigil of the western region. With the way he flies, he could be an aerial acrobat. Perhaps if he had been born in the southern region, he would have been given the opportunity that was foisted onto you. His extended wings remind you of Kree, perfectly symmetrical and elegant. He glides silently, a quality that you were once renowned for, and you leveraged this ability to hide in the shadows of the obstacles, almost as though you could turn invisible. You wonder now if, in a few more years, anyone will ever notice you again. One of the Aarakocra who asked for an autograph introduced herself as Uli, and as you scrawled your name for the 20th time, she said to you enthusiastically, "I think it's courageous that you still show your face." You stared into her eyes for a moment, and you couldn't muster a response. You handed back the signed parchment, and she thanked you eagerly as the next person shoved their way in. Even before sunset, it's dark in the woods. The trees are so dense here that they block out most of the light, even during the day. Your talons sink into the soil, and you cling to Errol and your walking stick for support. Reka motions for everyone to settle near a large hickory tree. On Errol's suggestion, you cast a quick spell to remove as much moisture from the ground as possible, and she sets down some extra blankets. As soon as you sit, you nearly collapse into a limp heap, succumbing to your exhaustion. An entire day of walking without any breaks. Your body used to train all day without issue. You lie back and close your eyes. You'll give yourself 10 minutes to catch your breath. Then it's time to do your healing rounds. Errol sits down beside you. She sighs and stretches out her legs, lifting her chin to the skies. The others begin to form their little camping groups, lighting fires. Coming up from the very back, Laurel is carrying the strange lantern that her brother presumably delivered to her. It's not too cold today, and it doesn't look like there will be more rain. Tonight may be a good time to speak with her. Reka swoops down and lands next to you. He puffs out his chest, and the two of you make brief eye contact. It's as though he's sizing you up, wondering how someone as famous as you can be so pathetic in reality. You push yourself up, straightening your back. He blinks a few times, then says, "Your shield glimmers." He speaks with a slow drawl, not unlike Bach's Sylvan. "It allowed me to locate you while I was in the air." He lifts a finger and points up. "Oh, I'm glad." He sits. "Ark or Coney? I heard different names." "You can call me Ark. Coney was just an old stage name." "Okay," he says. "What is your role?" You and Errol exchange looks. "I used to be an aerial acrobat," you say. "A what?" You stare at him. You can't tell if he's making fun of you. "It's a competitive sport that's popular in the southern region. You maneuver around obstacles in the air and get evaluated by judges." He nods, earnestly taking this all in. "So that's why they were swarming you." Have you really never heard of Coney? Asks Errol. He shrugs. I used to live in the north. The northern region? With the furbolgs? He shakes his head. The furbolgs lived among themselves. We were more south. We didn't usually interact with them. He's starting to sound more relaxed now. He sets down his bow and quiver of arrows. Do you know what happened to make them leave? Asks Errol. You peer over your shoulder at Bach, who's helping Maya Lee unfold her bedroll. Not sure, says Reka. I guess the trees were dying. What did that look like? You ask. It looked like dead trees. You burst into laughter. It wasn't even funny, but the way he speaks is so dry. The delivery of the line caught you completely off guard. Who is this man? He comes off as a recluse, oblivious to the world around him. Thank you for guiding us, by the way, says Errol. He shrugs again. An excuse to leave. You don't like that place? You say. He shrugs. Never got along with anyone. I didn't know what to talk about. I like Aled. She said I was a good shot. He pats his bow. Have you been to the south? You say. Once, to deliver a message. Did you like it there? You ask. It's warmer at least. He blinks. I hate cheese. This time, Errol laughs. Somewhere in his head, his response made perfect sense. Now you only want to goad him into saying more peculiar things. What do you like then? You ask. My good berries, my bow, and my arrows. Simple, you say. He nods. Do you need help with finding the way to the east? Asks Errol. He shakes his head and glances up. Just need the sun. You can navigate without maps? Asks Errol. Can't read that well. The words get all jumbled up. The maps don't look right either. I'm like that too, you say. That's why I need Ari to do the thinking for us. Errol smiles, shaking her head. That reminds me, says Reka. We reach the Lake of the Old Father tomorrow. Very pretty, very blue. Do we need to cross it? He nods. We cross Horned River. Says Errol. She pulls out her map of the INA and points at the two lakes near the center, as well as a river connecting the two. Leaning in, Reka squints his eyes and studies the design. They begin to discuss where they're currently located and how far they are away from the east. Errol seems surprisingly comfortable in his company. She's more relaxed with him than with anyone else. Soon, Reka sets up a small campfire, and the three of you circle around the dry warmth for a little longer than you should. You share with him some stories of the southern region, how you and Errol met, Errol's upbringing at the temple. He listens patiently with keen interest, though he doesn't ask any probing questions. You realize that this is the first Aarakocra you've had any normal conversation with for months. You're glad he's the one escorting you all to the east. Night comes, and everyone falls into deep slumber. You say your goodnights to Reka and Errol. Laurel is not too far away from you. She's huddled with Maya Lee and Bach as usual, but, very visibly, she's not lying down to sleep. Next to her is the strange hooded lantern, shining its bright light out of a large, unblinking eye. You wait until you hear Zabeth snoring, and you slip out of your bedroll. Laurel immediately peers over. You wave, and she averts her gaze, instinctively putting her hand on the lantern as if she wants to hide it from you. You stand, draping a blanket over your shoulders and wings. You tiptoe to her. To either side of her are backpacks and various traveling gear. You're not sure where to sit. May I sit with you? You ask, waving again. She narrows her eyes at you. Why? I thought we could discuss some things. Errol mentioned you can speak telepathically? She studies you, perplexed. She scoffs. Clearly, she already told you everything. Well, I think there's been a misunderstanding, and I want to hear your side. She doesn't speak for a long while. Finally, she sighs and shoves aside a backpack for you. You plop down beside her and offer one of your blankets. I wanted to thank you for saving me earlier, when I fell from the rope ladder. She shrugs. It's a simple spell. Then you hear her voice in your head. I owed you for speaking up for us, and for saving Bella when the soldiers ambushed us. She accepts the blanket and drapes it over her shoulders. You notice that Maya Lee is covered in extra layers. You wrap your wings around your torso and rub your hands together. Your real name is Laurel, right? She rolls her eyes. So Errol did tell you. Well, yes, but I actually found out before she did. I didn't tell her, though. I don't tell her everything. From up close, the eye on that lantern looks uncannily real. It could blink at any moment. She shrugs. There was a telepathic conversation that you and Bach were having. I don't fully understand what happened, but I happened to overhear it. I think perhaps Saranray intervened. Laurel furrows her brow. What are you talking about? What conversation? It was the same night you got that lantern from your brother. You gesture at it. You can tell in her eyes that she's starting to panic. I don't know what you mean. She shifts uncomfortably away from you, sitting up in a more defensive posture. You put your hands up. I don't wish to confront you. Truly. As I said, I think there's been a misunderstanding, and from what I could gather, I thought it was brave of you to help Bach and Maya Lee. Her eyes are darting around, like she's trying to figure out where to run. You reach out and touch her shoulder, to which she flinches. I haven't told Errol anything, and I don't plan to either. I won't tell anyone. Her mouth opens, but she doesn't speak. She pulls away. If you need any help, I want to assist. That's what I'm here to do. You're handling a lot of things on your own. You feel the telepathic link break. Bach rolls over to face you. He's shivering, with eyes squeezed shut, clearly in distress. He seems to be having a nightmare. A few seconds later, you hear her voice again in your head. I don't understand, she telegraphs. What do you want from me? Nothing at all. I don't want anything from you. But since we're traveling together, we should try to cooperate. We don't need to be friends, but I'm sure we all want the same things. She stares at Maya Lee and Bach. Laurel? You're a changeling, right? She puts her head on her forehead, blocking your view of her eyes. You heard everything. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. I know that was intrusive of me. Her shoulders start to shake, and it takes you a moment to recognize it as laughter. Fuck. I haven't told anyone, and I won't tell anyone, I promise. She sighs and shakes her head. I can't win against someone blessed by a fucking god. You slump your shoulders, letting out a nervous chuckle. The truth is I'm very new to this. I didn't know anything about Saranray a few months ago. I still barely know anything. She doesn't respond, but she appears a bit calmer. She turns to face you now. I know Errol seems difficult, but she really is a great person. She's my closest friend, and I wouldn't be alive without her. She's the one who brought me into the temple and taught me everything I know, and she's very keen and observant and protective, and she wants very badly to do the right thing. It's hard to always make the right judgment. She smiles meekly. Were you thrown into the middle of this, then? You nod. By Errol? Oh, no. I made this decision myself. I forced my way into this expedition. I really wanted to leave my home. She shakes her head with a smile. We're both idiots, aren't we? You chuckle. Maybe. She rubs her eyes. I know Errol has good reason to find me suspicious. I can't blame her. You seem nice, and she seems earnest. It's not because of you two that I'm so guarded. Yeah, it's tough out here with strangers. It's not that. She motions at Bach. He's been having nightmares lately, and he wakes up exhausted. No amount of sleep is helping. It's like I brought him here only to suffer. She gestures at Maya Lee. She's too young to have gone through the things she has. When you say you brought them here, what do you mean? I wasn't lying about the New Everlonian who captured them. He kept them locked up in a basement. Bach lived like that for years, and I worked for that man. You worked for him? For a brief period. A few months. He was a mage, and I was a research assistant. I stopped once I discovered them, though. You were studying magic, too? Something like that. But then you helped them escape. She shrugs. I didn't do anything. It was all my brother's help. He got us all the resources we needed to get here. She pats the lantern. I'm in over my head. She starts to sniffle, and you see tears forming in her eyes. I keep getting them nearly killed. You place your hand on her shoulder once more, and this time, she doesn't break away. We made it into the forest. You got them all the way here, and from New Everlon. You've accomplished so much. She shakes her head. He's after us. Who? The mage. He's gonna find us and take them back. You shake your head. Not if you're in the forest. He'd need a badge to get in. I got in, didn't I? He wouldn't have captured these two if he hadn't gotten into the forest before. Who is he exactly? His name is Siren Sanos. I'm certain he can scry on us. Scry? It's an advanced spell that lets the caster see someone from anywhere in the world. It creates an invisible sensor near the person they're targeting, and they can look through it and see what that target is doing. Sometimes, the caster can get a rough idea of where the target is located. You can sense the fear in her words and in her eyes. I didn't know he was so powerful, you say. If you want, we can let the people at the INA border know, so they don't let him in. She shakes her head. He'll find a way. I just know it. He can probably teleport or something. You take a deep breath. I asked my brother to send me something to help protect us against that. Laurel taps the lantern again. The light that comes out of this will illuminate invisible things, such as the scrying sensor. It's the only thing I have to make sure no one's watching. Have you spotted one yet? Not yet. She pulls her knees up to her chin. I don't want Bach or Maya Lee to know what's going on, but it's so obvious. They've probably figured it out. And Bach's having nightmares that I can't do anything about. Here I am, shining this stupid fucking light on them like it does anything. Is there anything I can do to help? She buries her face into her knees. We're all too weak compared to him. You glance at Bach, whose body is starting to convulse. He mouths, No, no. You lean over, touching his chest. You close your eyes and feel for his heartbeat. It's quick and uneven. If you had the calm emotions spell prepared, it could help. His body is frigid, but his forehead is drenched in sweat. Something about the nature of his dreams, you feel, is unnatural. Most people who enter deep sleep are motionless, and yet Bach is shifting around, his eyes moving rapidly. What if, you say to Laurel, he's also interfering with Bach's sleep? She blinks at you, furrowing her brow. I don't know of any spells that can do that. If he's a mage, maybe it's a curse of some sort. Her eyes go wide, and she straightens her posture. You put your hands together and close your eyes. Saranre, you pray, please let me see if there's any magic in the area. You open your eyes again. You first spot the lantern, a light gray hue now emanating from its light. From Bach, there is a brownish tint shimmering off the surface of his skin. Do you see anything? Asks Laurel, reactivating the telepathic link. There's a brown color coming off him. Do you know what that means? That's illusion magic. Illusion? Laurel pulls out a rolled-up sheet of paper. My brother gave me a few dispel magic scrolls to get rid of the scrying, but maybe I can use it for this too. I can't cast this reliably yet. Here, you say. You whisper a little incantation under your breath, and you release the emboldening energy onto Laurel. She lifts her head up, jolting a little. That's a strange sensation. What is it? It's a spell called Guidance. Maybe it will give you a little aid. All right, let me try. She unfurls the scroll, revealing a complex web of words and diagrams and images that you can't even begin to decipher. Your first encounter with Errol's prayer book was almost just as confusing. You wonder if those two could ever bond over the complex magic that they've had to study. She begins to whisper quietly, her eyes focused, her head steady. The language sounds like a strange dialect of Elvish, regal and ancient. As the incantation completes, the scroll begins to glow, and it shatters like glass into millions of tiny fragments, suspended in the air for a moment, before condensing together and shooting out a tiny beam of energy into Bach's chest. All at once, Bach's body relaxes. His jaw goes slack, and his arms drop down to his sides. His breathing calms, and he begins to snore peacefully. You turn to Laurel, who immediately covers her mouth with her hands. Tears begin to flow down her cheeks, yet she begins to snicker. I'm such a fucking idiot, she whispers. Why didn't I realize? You pat her on the shoulders. That was amazing. She shakes her head, still laughing. Your spell made the difference. Thanks. She leans into you a bit. I've been an asshole. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I understand. If you ever need any help, I'm happy to take some of your burden. Thanks. She looks over to you. I couldn't figure out how to broach the topic, but can I have one of your feathers? You blink at her. Oh, of course. You pat yourself all over, and you find a loose feather on your waist. You pluck it out, handing it to her. She twirls it between her thumb and index finger. Your feathers have a beautiful color. She tucks it in her hair. Do you have a collection or something? Oh, no. The feather fall spell requires the use of a feather. I reckon it'll be quicker for me to touch a feather on my head than reach for a wand, since you'd have to react fast when someone's falling. You nod. Thanks again for that. You saved my life. It's no problem. Only now does her appearance strike you as extremely young, even younger than Errol. You wonder, having lived most of your life comfortably, how many people have suffered and died while you remained oblivious. In the end, you're only one person. Laurel is risking her life just to save two more lives. Everything you do is so small in the grand scheme of things. Thanks, says Laurel, for everything. Truly. You nod. Thank you for trusting me. I promise I won't tell anyone, not even Errol. She chuckles. You should get some sleep. Mock said it's going to rain tomorrow afternoon. It's only going to get colder. You should sleep too. I will, once the lamp goes out for the night. Okay. I'll stay up with you then.